Welcome, viewers. I am making this picture montage review about some of the experience I've had with my G0602 lathe. The first picture I've taken here, the lathe apart, and for the most part, the structure looks pretty good. The main bedways and everything is not too bad. I think the lathe itself maybe isn't too bad. There is some questionable things with it. The way they just kind of lathered up some of the paint here on this second picture, and then even here on this third picture, the top main part is fine, but the way they casted it has this little flaw here. But it's not a critical thing, so it's just when you're being obsessive compulsive, it's a little questionable. But when we get down to the fourth picture here, the cross slide and everything, and I've seen other people talk about when they've got some of these here, and this is not just like the Cosmoline, warehouse dust. I mean, this has grinding dust inside of it. So when I actually intended on getting this lathe, I planned on pulling it apart to really clean it a lot more thoroughly. And the ways look pretty good when we get down here to this sixth picture. But, it's just how they put the paint in here. It was like they were painting it as they were, like, finished machining it and assembling it and painting it all at the same time. Now, here I took the carriage across, the carriage. Apron, I guess, whatever you call them. I know people call them different things. But I've got that pulled off here, and it's upside down. And you can see all the grit right here in the little wipers and stuff. It's just the grinding dust and grit was just everywhere. So, I pulled this off and cleaned it up a bit. Because I'm trying to take care of the machine, make it last, and I just want to have a good start with it. But as you can see down here, this is 10th picture. I mean, even inside of the adjusters, the gib adjusters here, for the cross slide, I pulled these out, and it was just, even in the little holes right there, it was just full of the dust everywhere. Like I said, I think the machine can be a good machine. The structure of it looks good, and it either is or isn't. Probably, when they make the machine, but they put it in a big manufacturing thing where they make them in China, I'm sure. But right here on picture number 11, this is your dial for your lead screw dial for threading, your threading dial. And when I did most everything, got it pulled up, did some test runs with it after I did some cleaning where I could actually do the test runs, because you're supposed to do the test break-in procedure. And this dial, it just kind of sat there and wobbled. It wasn't on there. It didn't seem like it was on there straight. So I decided I pulled that apart, all off of there. I was kind of wary because I don't know, this is my first lathe and dealing with that. So I didn't know how it was going to end up, if it's supposed to be calibrated, and I figured I would just go with it. I figured it was probably just so many threads per inch, and it was just calculated by how many teeth and everything. And when you start here, when you move it back, it's just the same starting point, just a calculation of space and one number to the next number on how many revolutions, and I'm pretty sure I was right when I did that. But anyways, you can see here, when I took that off of there, it wasn't even in there right, and they couldn't even get it in there right because there was all this paint chip stuff in here, and I had to scrape that out of there. So it was like just the fit and finish on this was just really deplorable. I was just not really happy with that. Just kind of the slapped up paint, like it shows here up under the ways, and some of the main components aren't too bad, but even checking out here inside the spindle, I mean the rough cutting of it through the hole, I mean it just looks really kind of shoddy. I mean, this is only from the outer end where you have the spindle nut or the spider nuts, whatever you call them, but it looks all right where they did do some grinding for the Morris Taper 4 for your dead center from the chuck end. that looks fine. I put that in there, and it seemed like it was okay. It just, it just seems like they're just in a big rush to do this. They just didn't care about the through hole and just kind of the appearance of that, so it wasn't, that big of a deal to them. But at least they did do the grinding for the dead center. At least it seems decent enough. Now, and here again, here's the cross slide when I took all that off of there. And I'm still working on and dealing with that and stuff, but they've got paint right here in the slide, the dovetail ways, and I mean that's like a critical contact component, and they just let paint get up in here, and it just like they're trying to do everything all at once as cheaply and as quickly as possible, and so that's just like really irritating. I'm just figuring that hopefully it kind of eventually wear down or out of there, but I don't know if that's going to cause me any issues. You can see with my other videos and stuff coming out that, I'm going through some different things, trying to make the adjustments, try to get everything, in my thought process all worked out. So I know what I'm doing with my machining, know how to adjust the machine, know how to set it up and do all that. As I'm learning from everybody else here, I'm working on projects, and it takes me to work on the lathe and make projects with the lathe. But you can't just jump in it. You certainly have to know some things of what you're doing. But to me, that just seems like that shouldn't be there like that. And I don't really want to just take something into it and start scraping that out. Because I don't want to gouge something, or I'm just a little too cautious. I'm just hoping it eventually wear out. But then is it causing me to have different adjustment problems? I don't know. I haven't got any way to kind of test that. The Gibbs or the cross slide is moving okay, but I got it pretty tight because I think I have some play. But I even questioned them about that, and they said that's normally how it's supposed to go. As you can see here down on picture 17. I've got about 48 thousandths on the front. Or I think it was about 50 thousandths. It was 50, almost 50 on front and back in this little gap. And they said that's normal. And I have a G0704. I bought their mill a couple years back, and the Gibbs that it has for the table on there aren't like that. But they didn't want to try to do anything to correct this, so I'm just kind of rolling with it now. I mean, the cross slide, or no, not the cross slide, your compound. The compound isn't like that, because I pulled that apart and cleaned it, because I pulled everything pretty thoroughly apart and to clean it. And that other one isn't like that. I don't have any sort of gap like that. I mean, it's very minuscule of a gap. It fits right in there. And this one here, I took a feeler gauge. That's how I know it's about 50 thousandths gap on separated. And it's just, I thought I'd want to have more back support instead of all the pressure just being pushed on those pins from the gib adjusters, but that's what they kind of said. And fine, we got some grinding dust, it's warehouse machinery, they put some stuff on there. I'm kind of fine with some of that. I mean, the grinding dust I think is a little ridiculous, but on the top part of the dust, weighs, any of that stuff, that's what it says. You got to clean up your machine and stuff and get it set up and going. But here I'm on picture 19. What really kind of aggravated me was, I'd seen other people talk about this too. Somebody else had talked about, the tapered bearings they're packed with some sort of light grease, and I'll get to some of the other pictures later. But I didn't know if I wanted to just kind of roll with that for a little bit, because they should have been, I figured they had grease in them. But then it does talk about, and you do have ball oilers for them. So I was doing a testing procedure, started running a little bit, and then I started putting oil in it, and this stuff started coming out. It was just, the oil was, it was, fresh, oil that's, a yellowish hue, and this is what comes out. It's just this dark stuff, and it's all this shiny metal flake stuff in it. And this is when I'm still doing, I did a test run, and I'm doing the spindle break-in procedure. And this is what I have in there. I mean, they are in such a quick, hurry, put it together type of thing that when they put brand new bearings in there, they have it full packed in there. Now, I don't really know that, they send it off, have some factory over some place over there. I don't know if this is like a malicious thing that the foreigners do to things like that, because whatever. I mean, that's a possibility. But either way, having this in your tapered bearings, this kind of stuff, it just doesn't seem like that should be there. I have mechanical experience with dealing with other stuff, and I just, I wouldn't put something together. I'd clean that all apart to put it back together. And see, I wiped it up on my finger. You can see some of the stuff here. But down here to get into picture 22, you can see where I did pull it out because I was so irritated with that. I just pulled it all apart, pulled the bearings out of there because I have a bearing puller for or a bearing separator for automotive, and I did pull that all apart when I pulled the spindle off of there to completely sanitize and clean out the bearings, flush all that out, and you can see that there's the grease in there and then the grime stuff that's in it. And we got picture 24, picture 25. You can see the spindle sitting out there, and they got all the spray paint up there on the middle of that. It's just they're just putting it together while they're painting it and doing stuff like that. And I went to all that effort and put it back in, and then I started putting more oil through it. And I mean, I cleaned it out. I mean, I sprayed it out with brake cleaner, and I mean, these bearings were clean. I mean, they were clean. I blew them out there, and I repacked them with some light grease. I think it was lithium-based grease that it seemed like that they had the same stuff. Just to get it started in there, and I go from there. But then I started putting more oil in there, and I had the same issue with the stuff coming out of there. So it wasn't even just when they were putting these bearings in there and pushing the spindle in. I think it was coming from the ball oilers where the little channel is, because it's like inside of a casting, and it's like a drilled out hole. If you look inside, if you actually have this all pulled apart, at the top where the ball oilers are, there's like a casting groove, and then it's just a drilled out hole, and it meets up with the bearing race, and then the oil feeds it from the top, from the front and the back. And but I think I started pushing more of that stuff out because it was all up inside of that thing. So I mean, they just machine it. It doesn't seem like they do a whole lot to clean it after they're done doing a machining process, building this thing, and then they just throw it together and spray paint it on the way. And so, I mean, this is what you kind of come to expect with what Grizzly's going to do when they're trying to make his, the machine, which isn't that they're trying to make the best machine. They're just trying to make an okay machine for the best profit they can turn, because you definitely know that that's what companies are doing when they're sending machines or things to be manufactured in China. They're trying to get the best overhead that they can. So you certainly have to look out, because I'm certainly trying to do things on about the cheapest I can get them, and so I was forced to really do this with this machine. And being an obsessive compulsive person, there's a lot of things that will really aggravate you about that. I'm not like super like ridiculous over obsessive compulsive, but when you have some expectations and they're not being met, that you feel a little indifferent about that. I have some other videos coming out because I think I had, it came right out of the factory where the directions say, yeah, just do a wipe down, clean it down, you do a spindle break-in procedure and run it. I mean, I from what I could tell, I was off quite a bit with the headstock, and I'm looking at doing a headstock adjustment, and it looks like I'm having some issue with the faceplate for my four-jaw chuck, and it's not straight because I can't try to get some sort of a mandrel device in there to make that straight. So I'm running into some other issues, but this as far as just when I got the machine, I was going through the break-in procedures and just starting. I've already been doing a little bit of machining and trying to get my feet wet going with this, but this is the experience that I've been going through with this. So I hope this helps you to kind of understand what you have to expect with this, and I hope you enjoyed me going over some of the pictures and some of the information with you. Thanks for listening.